All right, welcome to the program. I'm Paul Gatling, editor of the Northwest Arkansas Business Journal. Joining us today in our Springdale studio, Mike Preston, head of the Arkansas Economic Development Commission. Mike, welcome. Always good to see you.
Thanks for the invitation. It's good to be here today.
First off, congratulations. I guess your 2-year anniversary, March of 2015, when you were successfully recruited away from the Sunshine State. I guess that means you're sticking around?
Yeah, I'm here to stay.
Good. All right. Well, let's jump into it. Your job boiled down is to expand business in Arkansas, either through offering incentives to attract business or incentives to expand business in Arkansas. Sell me on why it makes sense to have a business here in Arkansas.
Well, Arkansas, we like to say, is a natural state. It's a natural state for business, in my opinion. We have so much to offer here. We have a great tax structure that's competitive amongst our southeastern competitors. But then you look at our strategic location where we're placed in the country, and we have access to east-west interstate, north-south interstate, but then having the Mississippi River as our entire eastern border and the access that allows us to bring in goods and be able to trade, and then being a leader in agriculture and poultry and rice production. But then you look at the strength that we have, especially here in Northwest Arkansas, with the Fortune 500 companies that are headquartered here, and that Arkansas tenacity that we have and the determination to build our own companies and grow. So we have all these things, and then you look in South Arkansas in the timber industry and the steel in Northeast Arkansas. So if you look at us from an outside perspective and why is it a great place to do business, we have such a diverse economy in our state. We're not dependent upon solely on tourism or solely on agriculture, and those are key drivers in our state. But we have those, and we have other drivers that allow us to not put all of our eggs into one basket. That we can focus on multiple sectors. So if I'm a business who's looking to come in, I can say this is a state that has it together. That's not going to just to depend on this one industry. We have a diversified economy.
And talking about eggs, recent announcement this week, a Chinese company is going to make use of a former poultry facility in Danville. What are some of those details, and how did that come about?
So it's a great reuse of a facility that's been vacant there. So we've continued to do a lot of work in China. We have an office in Shanghai, so we have representation full-time in China. So those of you watching in Arkansas, be proud to know that you have someone who's working for you in China to make sure that these Chinese companies know about Arkansas and know to invest their dollars. So multiple visits the governor and I have made over to China. We've opened the door for them Chinese investment to come in, and based on some of those conversations we've had over there, we're able to get companies to come to our state. This one in particular that's going to be coming into the Danville area and making pet food products. So a great reuse of that. 70 jobs, might not be the home run of 1,000 jobs or something, but those singles and doubles are nice to have too. 70 jobs are going to be important. Those are 70 families who are going to have a good source of income coming in, and be several $1 million reinvested in that facility to convert it to making pet food. So we're excited about that announcement this week.
And now let's go up to this corner of the state, Northwest Arkansas. Since the governor took office, which essentially encompasses your entire time in Arkansas, I want to throw some numbers at you. AEDC has signed 57 incentive agreements with new or expanding companies here in Northwest Arkansas, about 3,600 new jobs, $1 billion in new capital investment. The people here like to say that this region punches above its weight in a lot of different areas, but what maybe are 2 or 3 things specifically that make Northwest Arkansas an attractive region to drive numbers like that?
Well, for one, it's known everywhere across the country that Northwest Arkansas is one of the fastest growing markets in the entire country. So people tend to pay attention to things that are getting attention. So you look at what's happening here, and you're getting more interest, and people are saying, "Man, what a great place." There's a quality of life aspect to Northwest Arkansas that's attractive to people from coast to coast to north to south, that they want to be here. Mm-hmm. But then again, you look at the Fortune 500 companies that I mentioned before, and Walmart and Tyson and J.B. Hunt, and how many indirect companies are impacted by them, and having them here, and people want to come and do business with or around those organizations. And then you look at a community like Fort Smith that has such a strong manufacturing background, and what we're seeing now is the reshoring of jobs. So we mentioned China. before, for 20 years previously, jobs were leaving us and going to China, and manufacturing was happening over there. As labor rates shift there and continue to go up, and shipping costs continue to go up, it makes more sense to manufacture products here in North America if you want to service the North American market. So you look at a community like Fort Smith that has a strong manufacturing background. We're seeing a lot of interest again in manufacturing, especially in the Fort Smith area, and a lot of good announcements there. So there's a lot of things to Northwest Arkansas and this community that make it great, but I think that the balance of quality of life comes into play, and a lot of the things that the Northwest Arkansas Council and the Springdale Chamber and the Fort Smith Chamber have focused on, and have really made a difference in the last couple of years, and we're seeing the fruits of those labor pay off today.
And so the second part to that is, how do you transfer that success? Arkansas, like Florida or most states, has its overperforming areas, its underperforming areas. How do you transfer the success of a region like this area to other parts of the state that might be considered underperforming?
Well, and that's something to me that's so unique about Arkansas, is that we are diverse, when it in our state regionally, and when it comes to our economics. So, what's happening, and it's good for Northwest Arkansas, maybe is not the same that's going to be happening in Northeast Arkansas, and it's going to be different from what's happening in Central versus South Arkansas. So it's really a matter of identifying your strengths in a region and what's important to you and what's going to be your drivers. So I think Northwest Arkansas has set the bar very high in a catalyst, and this is the areas that we're going to focus on. But for South Arkansas, maybe it's the timber industry that we're starting to see a revitalization in. I think in the last 2 years we've done 25 different projects in the timber industry, most of those located in South Arkansas. So you're starting to see some of these mills that were shut down for many years. People are reinvesting into these mills in El Dorado and in Stuttgart and Arkadelphia and places in between. So you're playing to your strengths, that we have a lot of timber in South Arkansas, so we're going to utilize that. In Northeast Arkansas, and you see the steel industry, and a Nucor Yamato, and a Big River Steel, where they're using the access to the Mississippi River to haul in the scrap metal and then be able to take out the finished product. So playing to your strengths is really the key, and making sure that each region knows what their strengths are, and then we as a state collectively can work together to help each of those regions.
Right. Let's talk about guns now. It's a sector that continues to thrive, not just in our region, but throughout the state. We've seen evidence of that a few months ago with the big Daisy outdoor announcement. There's a big presence in places like Berryville and Fort Smith in that sector. What are some other examples that make that a strong, viable job creation avenue for the state?
Well, if you look, I think Forbes ranks Arkansas as the number 3 most friendly gun state in the country. So when you look at where traditional gun manufacturing is taking place in the Northeast, it's not as favorable. Guns aren't necessarily looked at as the same way as they are in Arkansas. So while you might be able to manufacture a gun there, you might not be able to sell it there. So they're starting to look at the South as a good place to do more manufacturing. A good example of this is Sig Sauer. It's a company in New Hampshire that has done their first investment outside of that state in the state of Arkansas, and that was one that very early on in the governor's tenure, it was picking up the phone and cold calling the CEO of this company and saying, Arkansas is a great state for hunting. We're enthusiastic about the firearm, the outdoor industry, and we'd love to have more manufacturing it. We have a manufacturing population in our population base, and guns kind of fit right into that. So that call turned into a relationship, which turned into a project, which was initially 84 jobs in Jacksonville, Arkansas. Fast forward a year later, when they made that announcement, to today, that project's up to 150 jobs, and Sig Sauer was just won a military contract to do the new side carry for the United States Army. What used to be the Beretta will now be this Sig Sauer. So it's a $500 million plus contract. All of a sudden they're making their ammunition in Arkansas, and they win this contract. So I look for those 150 jobs to continue to grow in our state. So, and you mentioned Daisy right here in Northwest Arkansas. What a history and a tradition we have here. And when Gambo came in and purchased them, there was concern of what's going to happen. Are they going to move those manufacturing jobs? Are they going to take some of the corporate headquarter functions away? And rather than doing that, Gambo, a Florida-based company, decided, we're going to move our operations to Northwest Arkansas. So we're glad that we still have that function of manufacturing as well as the corporate headquarter piece here.
Right. I'm sure that Florida connection maybe came in handy with that particular
That's
announcement.
right.
So I'm sure you're familiar with the Northwest Arkansas Council, a regional organization that also recruits business, does a lot of the same job functions you do. How does the commission coexist with those guys?
Well, we have to have local and regional partners, and we rely so heavily on them. You know, we're looking at Arkansas as a big, broad-based, you know, the entire state. But really, you know, the product lies in a local community. We don't have, you know, the access to the product. It's a local economic development organization like the Northwest Arkansas Council, and they do such a good job of marketing this area and telling the story. And then you look at, you know, groups, as I said, the Fort Smith Chamber, the Springdale Chamber of Commerce. You know, the product really lies with them. They know the sites that are available. They know the buildings that are available, what office space is. So we have to rely on them to tell us, you know, hey, what are the industries that you guys want to go after? What is it you have available? So it's a strong partnership is essential in economic development. You have to have a strong partner, and I can't think of any better ones than the ones right here in Northwest Arkansas.
What are some challenges that maybe Arkansas faces as a whole when recruiting new business? What are the roadblocks that you see, and how do you overcome those?
You know, some of it's just perception. For so long, people just, you know, maybe they just, for whatever reason, haven't thought about Arkansas. It's a sleepy southern state, not a huge population, so we get overlooked. Our goal is to make sure that people know Arkansas, that we know we're on the radar screen, that we know that we have 7 Fortune 500 companies that are homegrown right here, including, you know, industry leaders in so many different sectors, and we have that diverse economy. We have a proactive governor who's pro-business. We have resources through our economic incentives. We've got a great tax structure. We've got all the infrastructure in place that, you know, why not Arkansas? So I think getting over some of those perception issues, and I think we're making good strides in having that. And, you see that happening in China, where we have an office, where we just opened an office in Berlin and in Europe to represent us there, and in Tokyo. So it's a matter of getting that message out. We know how great things are here in Arkansas. We know about the quality of life. We got to share that message with others.
Right, and to maybe dig in a little deeper there, the current events you've probably been aware of the last few weeks in Arkansas centered on one topic, and that's the death penalty. Yeah, in your large economic development network across the globe, are you starting to hear anything that might be a negative perception to the state? Are these events causing anything in those regards?
You know, we've had these conversations leading up to this, and no, we really haven't. We haven't seen that. We've had prospects in town this week, last week, and next week, and so far that issue hasn't come up. You know, despite it might be the number one topic on in the media, and it's getting international attention. But for the companies, it's bottom line. It's dollars and cents. It's, am I going to be able to come here and have a successful business? I'm going to be profitable here. That's what they're looking at. We're not hearing the issues on that. And if you look really where we compete with states, we're competing with the states in the Southeast. And if you think about Arkansas and the Razorbacks competing in the Southeastern Conference in football, we compete in the Southeastern Conference in economic development. So we're competing against a Texas and a South Carolina and a Florida. You know, those states have the same laws that we do here when it comes to terms of the death penalty. So it's not really an issue that's come up for us.
Okay, and we've covered job recruitment now. What are some of the other things that the commission does besides recruit companies to the state?
Well, you know, we recruit companies, and people look at that. That's what gets the headlines anytime we bring in a new company. But a lot of it is working with our existing companies and growing our own. We see a lot of the growth through the state through growth within our own companies. So it's making sure that they have access to the things that they need, access to capital, access to, you know, the tax structure, the proper tax structure, training grants. We have a group in our manufacturing solutions who come in and do training, who work with manufacturers to make sure that they're efficient and they're transitioning from to have more efficiencies in their organization. So we go in and do a lot of help with our existing companies as well. We have access to support small and minority business as well. So if there's, you know, a small startup company that's looking for just access to getting into markets, we're there to be able to assist them. We used to have the Science and Technology Authority was a standalone agency, is now part of AEDC. So we're looking at those technology-based companies that are, that are spinning out of the research institutions within the state, making sure they're going through the incubation phase, and we're trying to offer them access to capital and guidance to mentors and other things like that. So a lot falls under the scope of AEDC beyond just the job recruitment that you'll typically see and read about in the headlines.
Okay. And something pretty recently you're involved in, a Blue Ribbon Commission that the governor announced last week to study, or last month I should say, study computing and data analytics in Arkansas. You're a co-chair of that. What can you tell me about that effort?
Well, it's exciting, and I look at the folks that are on there, and if you've got great representation from Northwest Arkansas with the CEO of J.B. Hunt, as well as the CIO of Tyson and the CIO of Walmart, who are sitting on this commission. So I give a lot of credit to the governor in his forward thinking to say, we need to be ready for jobs of the future. And I talk about our diversified economy here. The cross-cutting thing in that is computer science and data analytics. Whether it's a steel company or a timber company or a distribution and logistics company, data and computer science cuts across all of those. And we need to make sure that we have a workforce here that is conducive to that these companies can come in and say, this is what we need, these are the jobs of the future and where it's going. How can we ensure our workforce is on board with this? So what the governor did in his computer coding initiative in the high schools, the middle schools and high schools was a great step. This is the second step on that, making sure that our higher education institutions, our 2-year schools, our 4-year schools have the curriculum that will build on that, but then tailored towards industry. We want the industry at the table, and that's why we have this Blue Ribbon Commission, so the industry can say, these are the jobs that we need going forward. How can we have a sustained solution to having these jobs? And then with data and computer science, the only thing that's constant is change, because what's new right now in 5 years is going to be obsolete. So we want to make sure that this is sustainable in a way that we can continue to turn things on a dime and use the latest and greatest technology for our state.
And you're working towards issuing a report this fall on that, right?
That's the goal, is to have it out that's what the governor wants us to do, right. So that's what we're going to do. Right. So we'll have it out this fall, and hopefully a good report there with some action steps on how we can, as I alluded to before, make this a sustainable process for Arkansas.
Okay. All right. Last question for you. Florida, unlike Arkansas, is most definitely not a one-horse town when it comes to major college athletics. So I'll put you on the spot here. Gators, Hurricanes, Seminoles.
Gators all the way.
Gators all the way. All right. But you've given up that chomp for the
That's
Hogs.
my
right?
SEC East team. My SEC West, it's called the Hogs.
All right.
Go Razorbacks.
All right. Very good. We'll leave it there. Mike Preston, head of the Economic Development Commission.
Thank
Come back
you.
anytime.
Appreciate it.
All right. We're back after this.